All right, welcome back. We're still in Matthew chapter 26 with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and we're jumping around some of the Gospels just to see what each of them have to say about this incident. Previously, I've mentioned to you that it's thought that John wrote his Gospel considerably later, after the time when Matthew, Mark, and Luke wrote their accounts, and probably he was filling in gaps of things that he had firsthand knowledge about, because he was right there with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, that Matthew and Mark and Luke, for some reason, omitted. And I think it's really interesting just in this instance to take a look at John's gospel. You have to go to John chapter 18 to read about Jesus' arrest in the garden. And we have in verse number 4 of John 18, Jesus saying to those who had come to arrest him, "Whom do you seek?" Verse 5, they answered him, "Jesus the Nazarene." And he said to them, "I am he." Now, if you have a pretty good Bible, you're going to see that the word he there is in italics, indicating that it really wasn't part of the original scriptures. It's not recorded. That's not how John wrote it. He actually wrote, "I am," and translators wrote he. Well, I think that's a huge mistake to have added the word he in there, because that's not what Jesus said. Jesus said, "I am." You may recall that I am is one of the names that God at one time revealed himself as being. He told, I believe it was Moses, to tell the people of Israel, tell them, "I am has sent you. I am who I am." The eternally existent one, perhaps, is what is implied by that name. I am. And so I think it's interesting that very likely Jesus, even in that instance, although it could be interpreted two ways, they asked him the question, "Who are you looking for?" Or he asked, "Who are you looking for?" They said, "We're looking for Jesus." He says, "I am," implying I am he, but really declaring once again his deity. You're looking for God, and I am. I am who I am. I'm the great I am. And John goes on to say that when Jesus said those two words, "I am," verse number 6, so when he said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Now, why do people draw back and then fall to the ground? Well, it could be they drew back because they thought it was such a strange answer, and then they tripped and stumbled, and it was one of those, things that would make America's Funniest Home Videos or something, where, whoa, they like dominoes all fall back. But I think there's a little bit more to it than that. I think there's something supernatural going here. When God spoke and said, "I am," there was a tangible power that went forth from Jesus, and the power of the Holy Spirit, and these guys just fell over. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't look at it close enough, but that this actually happened twice. I don't know why that's coming to my memory at this point in time. But in any case, here it is in verse 7 of John 18. Therefore, he again asked them, "Whom do you seek?" And they said, "Jesus the Nazarene." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he, so if you seek me, let these go their way," to fulfill the word which he had spoken, and so on and so forth. So the question is asked twice by Jesus. Now, you would have thought that these guys who were knocked over by some invisible power might have said, might we ought to rethink this whole arrest idea of this guy who just says, "I am," and all of a sudden we all fall over. He's much more powerful than we are. We could be facing something that we're not ready for. But numbskulls that they just pursued their plan. And it was at that time that Peter came up with a bright idea to defend his Lord. Remember, he had boasted, quite emphatically that even though everybody else would fall away, he would stand by Jesus, and he was willing to be arrested and to go to prison and even to death for Jesus. And so he pulls out a sword that he has, and we begin reading in Matthew 26 and verse number 51. Behold, one of those who were with Jesus, Matthew doesn't tell us it was Peter, one of the other gospel writers does, reached and drew out a sword and struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back in its place, for all those who take up the sword shall perish by the sword." Now, I've asked myself the question, how do you cut off somebody's ear? I think one of the gospel writers says he cut off his right ear. Yes, Luke tells us it was his right ear, all right? So how do you cut off someone's right ear in a commotion like that where you're being arrested? I don't think you pull out your penknife or your surgical scalpel and say, now, hold still, I want to get right along the hairline there. No, this is a sword that Peter has, and I can't imagine him saying, oh, I think I'll cut off this guy's ear and, trying to come just, right along the edge of his head. No. When the guy sees the sword coming, he's going to be ducking. And so it's much more likely, I think, that Peter was swinging in a horizontal fashion, going for the neck. We're going to decapitate this guy. And the guy sees the sword coming and bows down to get it, and the sword just nips his ear, and the ear goes to the ground, and golly, that would hurt. Okay, but Peter wasn't trying to, just deter him. He was trying to stop him and trying to decapitate him. I think it's interesting that Peter happened to have a sword on him that was capable of doing that, certainly with Jesus' full knowledge. All right. Now, another interesting rabbit trail we have to follow. We already talked about how Luke pointed out that Jesus was sweating great drops of blood. Luke, the physician, identifying this medical condition. Well, Matthew and Mark don't tell us what happened after Peter sliced off the ear, but Luke does, the physician, the guy who's always concerned about, people who need medical attention. Jesus answered and said, verse 51, stop, no more of this. And he touched his ear and healed him. Oh, I wish I could see that in a rerun. Did Jesus pick up his ear? Was it hanging by a thread and just plop it back on and, then instantly healed? And you'd think that there'd have been a major revival after that, but no, they still arrest him. Oh my goodness. All right, more to say. I'll see you next time.
HeavenWord 7 is made possible by the financial support of viewers like you. Thank you.